can think of a way that you can document your problems. Don't look at the pictures.
Videotape.
I heard videotape. Video what? What does that mean?
A video, the apartment video, you used to talk about mildew.
Yeah, so we'll go with photographs, right? If you have problems, you want to document things. You want to create, legal term, evidence. Most people understand that term, okay? So when there are problems, you want to create documentation. What's another way you can document things? Don't look. I looked. Okay, you can look, and now you can still come up with something. Somebody in the peanut gallery. Okay, another way is you can keep a journal, okay? It is helpful in legal terms, we call this our contemporaneous notes. It's actually another word for it. But when you write something down contemporaneous with it happening, in the law, it has more impact. If you look back at something and you say, on May 5th, or on March 25th, my ceiling fell in and I wrote a note about it and this is what I felt and this is what I saw, that has more legal impact than if you do it 6 months later and you write it down, because you wrote it when it happened. So a journal, when you're dealing with a bad landlord or problems, is very helpful. It has more legal significance for your lawyer when you go to the lawyer. And again, a lot of what I'm doing here is so that if you ever get to the point where you come to a lawyer like myself or one of the services, you've already empowered yourself by following these techniques. That's what today is about, understanding ways to empower yourself. So another one are inspections. Having a third party come out and inspect your property, okay? So, you know, the landlord, just some basic law, basic understanding. I think most people have a general appreciation. The state, the county, the cities all have different laws that require your landlord to maintain your home in a safe and habitable condition. Right? When you sign a lease, what you're doing, this is just a good principle to understand. You sign a lease, you're saying, I'm paying you X amount of dollars, $1,000 a month. That's supposed to get laughs. Thank you. Okay. You sign your lease for whatever your amount is, and what you're saying to the landlord is, I agree to pay you this amount of money, and in exchange, you're going to give me a place that meets all of the requirements under state and local law. All the health and safety requirements, the building code, the housing code. That is the equivalency that is mandated, that is implied in your lease agreement. I pay you this, you give me this. When you're paying your landlord your rent, and he has failed to provide you all of those levels that are required under the law, you're not getting what you paid for. We're going to get to this down the road, but this is something you can try and recover. It's called a service, and it's called a reduction in service. When your landlord hasn't provided you what you're entitled to. And the best way to get a reduction in service, to make a claim that you're overpaying your rent, is to document what you're not getting. Okay? Because down the road, even if you don't deal with the landlord about it, just taking those pictures and making those notes, this is going to prepare you for down the road when you get to the point that you're having a dispute. Because you can show what was going on. All right, I'm not going to go to the next slide because the next slide has tricks. Let me see what I put. Okay, next one. Next one is called notice. And I'm going to go back. Oh, this way. See, okay, you can look at mine. I'm sorry. On mine, I don't have the picture. Next one is notice to your landlord. It's good to document stuff because that way you can show what was going on. But really, you need to make sure your landlord knows what was going on. Okay? So what are some ways you can provide your landlord notice that there is, say, a leaky roof?
Email, letter.
Email. We just got 3. Phone call, email, letter. Phone calls are great, and they really are, I'm all in favor of talking to your landlord. It really helps people have a better tone when there's actually in person. As we sometimes learn, when people don't have actual discussions, sometimes people don't quite have the same relationship with each other that they might otherwise have when they're talking one-on-one. So when you have a phone call, you want to document that phone call. And this is a great technique that everyone should kind of put in their bag of tricks that I'm giving you. You call the landlord and you say, I'm having a leaky roof, this is the problem. But of course, down the road, you can't count on your landlord agreeing that that's what happened. Every time you call the landlord, which is a great first step, you then follow up with the written documentation. Dear landlord, as you know, today we talked about, I called you today and told you about X, a leaky roof. You told me Y, you'd have it inspected. I look forward to hearing about the result. Thank you. Every time you call your landlord to speak to him, you should, and particularly if you know that you're getting to the point where you have a dispute. But there's no reason not to have that follow-up. This is what we talked about, this is what you said, this is what I said, this is where we left it. Simple techniques like that, so when you go back to a lawyer because there's a problem down the road, you have everything the lawyer needs to show that they were on notice. Because documentation is your first level, you're doing that for yourself. But you need to give your landlord notice of the problems. Because if a landlord says, I never knew, it's his defense. So, and then you say, well, and most often people say, well, I talk to the landlord all the time. We're now in this age where you can always call your landlord, and now we can go to the next slide, right? So we covered mail, email, text. This stuff doesn't go away. It's great, okay? Telephone is a great way to start, and I encourage you, it's good to try and have the dialogue, okay? Now we have also the social media. This goes kind of back to the journaling thing. I'm not on Facebook, I've heard all about it, but apparently that's a place you can kind of post things to your friends about what's going on. If you post something to your friends, you created documentation, right? Hey, I emailed your friend, I'm dealing with my landlord, this is what's going on in my life. Anytime you've done that, you've shown something, if it's contemporaneous with when it happened. If you write your friends this thing on Facebook and said, 6 months ago I had this problem, it doesn't have the same value because it's not taken right then. Okay, it's got value to your story, but from a lawyer's point of view, we want stuff right when it happens. We want you to have I just spoke to you, this just happened, this is what's going on right now. All right, so that's our checkpoint number 2. And okay, see here I had that blow falling in so I could hit you guys up. All right, number 3, advocates. It always shocks me that most people don't know about the tremendous amount of advocates. We are in San Francisco. We have more nonprofits, more advocates out there to help people for no charge than anywhere else. We have the strongest laws in the entire country to protect tenants. We have the more systems in place for you to prevent anyone from having to deal with a bad landlord. And you, as a tenant in your rent control apartment, have more power than any tenant anywhere. Okay, that is what San Francisco, that is why I can make a living, we can make a living, is because these laws are so strong and have such penalties that we can go after the landlords and get money for you and still be able to make a living to keep our ship afloat. So, one of the advocates that a lot of people don't know about is your building inspection department. Okay, I have a flyer out there that has some of the summaries of this information and includes the phone numbers for this as well. Easy to find. So, how many people have heard of the San Francisco Department of Building Inspections? How many people have called them? I got one in the back, I got Vince in the back, and one in the front. So what happens when you call them?
They take a report, send something out if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Then, yeah, and then they send something to the landlord.
They are your best advocate.
And then something happens.
If you call the city of San Francisco, the building department, without telling your landlord, you don't need to, they will come out within 2 to 3 days, typically. You call up and they make a complaint. They take your information. A complaint is now generated and assigned to your building inspector. This town is broken up into divisions and there's a building inspector in every town. That building inspector now has an open complaint and it's their job to get it closed. And their supervisor is going to be looking at how many open complaints they have. They will come out for free. They will inspect your home. If they find no problems, they will go away and your landlord doesn't have to know anything. They're not going to tell your landlord. They don't involve your landlord. It's not there. If there's any problem, they will write up a violation. They will serve it on the landlord. They will tell the landlord he has to fix it, and they will be coming back. It takes the fight out of your hands. You have an issue with your landlord, it's great to call and try and document it and fix it. If they're giving you shit, don't worry. Don't waste your energy. Pass the buck to your city services, okay? Once they open that notice violation, they will follow up and they will do everything and they will keep you posted. And you can have a personal relationship with your inspector whose job it is to make sure that your house meets all of these local laws for keeping the water out, for keeping the rodents out. Another one is your health department. And if you call either one of these, they'll decide who's the right one. But the San Francisco Department of Public Health, DPH, they deal with your bed bugs, your rodents, things that spread disease. Building department deals with your plumbing, your electrical, your roof, all the other problems about building codes. If you call one and they come out, they'll send it to the other one. So you don't have to worry too much. But if they're 2 different departments, they're both staffed with investigators whose job it is, and they can't ignore it because once you call, the person on the phone immediately creates a claim. You can go online from the government website and follow your claim. and see everything that they do. Because every day they go back from their office and they fill out every place they went to and the status of every complaint. And you can sit there and track what's going on. You don't have to fight with the landlord, and you're no longer responsible. Separate and apart, we have this really cool thing in California that says that if you contact a government agency, you insulate yourself. It's a retaliation statute. If your landlord, 6 months after you call one of these departments, if your landlord takes any step to evict you, to raise your rent, to do anything that he would otherwise try and do, then it is presumed he's retaliated against you. There's a presumption. Law, we have presumptions. Presumptions mean that it's your burden to overcome. Normally it's your burden to show that your landlord is harassing you. But if you call the bill of a public agency, the presumption is now that the landlord is harassing you with something he does. So it actually insulates you more. If you're fighting with your landlord without that, you don't have that protection. But the moment you call a government agency, you kick in California's retaliation statute to protect you. And it's just one more way to give people like me an ability to increase your claims. Because if they do that and they retaliate, there are additional penalties that you have to go after these landlords and IPs. Okay. Additionally, of course, there are a ton of nonprofits. And most of these nonprofits will direct you to the right type of person. I threw up here the Eviction Defense Collaborative. I forgot to mention. I'm also the president of the board of the Eviction Defense Collaborative, and I'm lucky enough to have two of our wonderful volunteers. Are you both volunteers? Two of our volunteers. So here's another little nugget of fun fact for San Francisco. The Eviction Defense Collaborative started 22 years ago. Every person in this town that gets evicted through a working thing we did with the court, if you get an eviction notice, the court of San Francisco will send you a letter telling you to come to us, the EDC. This doesn't happen in other counties. This is in San Francisco, a wonderful little aspect of our protecting tenants. It will send you to us. Every person in this town that gets evicted, doesn't matter what nonprofit you go to, they're going to send you to our clinic. Our clinic is open 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. You walk in with your papers saying you have 5 days when you're evicted to file papers with the court, or you will be ejected from home. You walk into our clinic, you walk out, the lawyers reviewed and helped you prepare papers to protect your rights so that you have the whole process to go through to maintain your rights. 97% of every eviction that's happening in San Francisco comes through our shop. Okay? We have volunteers like Nico here, Carly, who help run our clinic. We are funded primarily from San Francisco, the county of San Francisco, and it is really one of these, it's like a triage center for evictions. And we're also always happy to get volunteers, people looking, trying to actually do some outreach with some community groups, because our clinic is always packed with people who are in peril of losing their home. And what we do then is then we hand the buck off to many of these other nonprofits. We're that triage to make sure to stop the bleeding and then to pass it along. So I throw up for Strutt, who's been generous enough to host us here tonight for our first seminar. The AIDS referral panel is one of our sponsors for tonight. Again, many organizations that you find one and they'll get you to the right one. We have Casa Justa, we have the Chinatown Community Development Center, we have 50 Plus Network, which is again trying to organize and mobilize the tremendous amount of resources and nonprofits here in San Francisco. And the point is that you have to advocate. So empower yourself in one way is to reach out to your advocates and have them help you create the record so that you are not sitting there behind the 8 ball with a landlord who have an issue. Okay, and then the last thing are rent board petitions. This is again for empowerment and self-advocacy. So we have a rent board in San Francisco. Most places don't have this. The rent board is a quasi-judicial body. It just kind of means that it has the right over certain aspects of your relationship with your landlord. Now remember I talked about that you pay your rent and you're entitled to the services that match the rent. And the services are set by the state law. When the building department comes out and they issue a violation, they are saying per se, you are not getting those services. Every item of that violation is a reduction in the service the landlord is required to give you under the law. Okay? So if you get a violation, you have a document from the government agency saying your landlord that you overpaid your rent. Unless your landlord gave you a break on your rent, you paid too much rent anytime you've documented a violation under their building department or you're able to show that there was a problem with your unit. Now, a lawyer like me, we can't make a living trying to help people with these small claims. What we can try to do is teach you guys how to do it yourself. And the rent board has a very simple petition process. And the way it is this, I'll kind of give you examples of eviction. The standard defense to anyone being evicted in this town that uses EDC, landlord says you're not paying your rent. Files an eviction against you. Maybe you had a hard time or something. We go and we say, are there any problems with your home? Is there a leaky roof? Is there an outlet that isn't working? Is there a family bathroom that isn't working? Because when the landlord evicts you, they say, Joe owes me $1,000. So laughing. Joe owes me $1,000 for my rent. And he didn't pay it. The defense to that is, if we were to go to a jury trial, is to say, there was a problem with the unit. It was worth less than $1,000. Now, an eviction is required for the landlord to say exactly how much you owe. And because the state doesn't want people to lose their homes, it requires that that is exactly right. If it is $1 too much, you win your eviction. So when you're being evicted, the EDC can say, tell us about all the problems. Maybe you've been to one of my seminars, and you say, I've been documenting my problems. I've been giving notes to the landlord. Here's the letters I gave him about the leaky bathtub, or about the roof that was water's coming in with rains. That's great, that's evidence. Well, what we go to them and say is, okay, the landlord asked for that rent, but he didn't provide all the services. So he's actually entitled to less than that rent. And if a jury goes to a jury trial, and the jury says, yeah, well, that leaky roof, that should take off 10% of the rent for that month. And that's $100. They only really owe $900. The tenant wins. The eviction loses, and the tenant then has to pay the amount the jury would say. Okay, so that is the defense that we do for all of our evictions, is to try and show that the landlord is asking for too much money because there's some problem he hasn't fixed. And it allows us to have negotiating, because in most cases we can negotiate a settlement. But you don't want to have to go to a jury trial to get that $100 back. And that's why the better thing, some people say, you can say to the landlord, I'm not paying you my rent unless you fix this problem. It's a very adversarial and aggressive thing, and I don't recommend that. Rather, you go and you document the problems. You go through the checklist we did here, you write the landlord letters, you show that he knew about the problems because you emailed him, you talked to him and said, this is what we said on the phone. And then you get a petition, and the petition is really easy to fill out, and the people at the rent board, which is on Van Ness Market, will actually help you. And any nonprofit you can walk in and help you. And you list all of the problems, when they began, when they were fixed. That's why it's good if you get the building department involved, because they will actually give you a date that you know there's a problem and a date you know it's fixed. And with a rent board petition, you do what's called a reduction in service petition. And you say, I lived in this apartment for X number of months, and these were the problems. And then you come up with your own number. You say, I think I'm entitled for each of these problems to 5% off my rent over this 6-month period. So in 6 months I paid $6,000. Here's 10 problems. The rats that have been going around on the ground of the building, the lock that was broken, whatever the problems are. And for each one of them, you get to say, this is how much I want to be reduced. The rent board, without charging you, is going to set up a hearing. And they will petition your landlord, and there will be an actual hearing with a rent board commissioner, or a mediator, they get to commissioners eventually. And they will decide how much your rent should be reduced. And then they credit that on your rent going forward. That's the power of our rent board. So when you endure problems, you don't need to get a lawyer involved. You can be empowered, you can go on your own, and you can say, this is how I've been overpaying rent. Because I learned at this Tenants Made Easy seminar that when I pay rent, I'm supposed to get everything without a problem. My home is supposed to be safe, habitable, and functioning in accordance with the law. And I'll tell you, there is a minutia code for every aspect of your home. Your electrical, one of your outlets isn't working, that's a code violation. If your electric outlets aren't even grounded, that's a code violation. If your window isn't closing, that's a code violation. All of these things are a way for you to recover. It's nice to just try and put it out to your landlord yourself, say, hey, I understand that I actually supposed to get some credits, why don't you just give me a credit? I'd say my own building, I'm a rent control tenant, which is frankly the only way I've ever been able to build up my business. I live in the Tenant. And we had this is the first this is going on my life. We had the door wasn't locking. The gate, the 2 gates, right? The main gate wasn't locking. So I sent a picture of my landlord and said, my manager said, hey, they put a post-it, please close the gate firmly. Okay? I said, hey, that's actually not sufficient, because actually nobody keeps doing it, and the gate keeps coming open, so please do it. I got a response, okay, we're working on it. A week later, still not there. Somebody walked into our thing, took a crowbar, and bent open all the mailboxes and took everyone's mail. I now have a giant gaping hole in the mailbox, and I emailed the landlord again, and I said, this is bad. You need to do something about this. This is not acceptable. Here's a picture that I just took on my phone and I'm sending to you. And what I said actually is, it's going on. This was kind of my response. I said I got an email from the landlord's attorney because they know me and I've been in court with him a lot. You've heard of David Wasserman? Okay. He's a very well-known landlord attorney. He's actually one of our commissioners now in our rent court. Anyway, I got an email from David and I said, okay, they got your letter, they're going to work on it. I said, David, I'm giving this seminar called Tenants Rights Made Easy. And I'd like you to do something nice to my building. And if not, I'm going to host one here in the building. What I'm going to suggest is, in addition to fixing this problem promptly, that spring is coming, and maybe you, the landlords, want to do a little courtesy, go up, and we have a backyard. It's kind of unusual to Tenant. We actually have a backyard with trees, and it's all concealed. I said, it's time to do some gardening. We can use some sprucing up the lawn, maybe some wood chips, and how about a few chairs? And I won't have to go and advocate to every tenant of this building how you guys have screwed them, if maybe you do a little nice thing and spruce the place up a little bit. Actually, I haven't gotten a response yet, so I'm waiting to see how it goes. But my expectation is I feel like rather than everyone having a dozen petitions to get back a few, whatever the hundreds of dollars are, I think everyone would benefit from just having a nice year. Not really, it's either here or there, it's just a fun story. Alright, so anyway, those are kind of the basics of what I want to talk to you about. I'm going to take questions, and I've got some fun slides I'm going to put on here just to show this. We actually have a lot of fun going after bad landlords. So what we do, my office, what I'm talking to you guys about is really about how to advocate for yourselves. If it gets so bad, a lot of my clients, asthma, respiratory problems, emergency room visits, where the problem is so bad, particularly in the immigrant population, the really low income, who really endure some of the most hardships. Often our clients have to give up their rent-controlled apartments. Well, if you're ever in a rent-controlled apartment, you're sitting on an extremely valuable asset. And of course, that's why your landlord wants you out. Okay? Just to give you a little basic understanding about how it works. If you're paying that $1,000 a month rent because you've been there for 20 years like me, in your 10-to-1 apartment, and they'd love to get rid of me. And his email said, by the way, do you still live there? And I said, until you see me retired, so I'm not working in the city, you would expect that I'm living a half mile from my office in Hayes Valley. So if you're paying this $1,000 a month rent and you move out because your landlord refused to do what he needs to do, you've documented it well, and he goes back and he says, now we're renting out for $3,000 a month, you can still get some last minute of that. This is called a rent differential. The difference between what you pay and what your apartment is worth on the open market, that's what you save every month that you live in your rent-controlled apartment. So if your apartment's worth $3,000, which is easy and common at this time, then you could be saving $2,000 a month because you're in a rent-controlled apartment. And that's why your landlord looks at you and says, you're costing me $2,000 a month. Under the law, you get to sue your landlord and say, I want that $2,000 a month for every month I would have lived in that apartment. 12 months? How much? 24,000. 10 years? 240,000. That's how I make it. Going after landlords for what people really lost, which is the equity, the value that you earn, almost like being a homeowner. It really is. In California, we have this Prop 16, which says you can't raise taxes on the homeowners. Right? The landlord's taxes don't go